Geek. Talking baseball every week. 'Cause they're Gleeman and the Geek.
And welcome to Twins Daily's Winter Meltdown. I'm John Bonus from Twins Daily. With me, Aaron Gleeman of The Athletic and Patrick Reusse of, everything, right? Star Tribune, Pioneer Press, Score North. Hold it. Do we have a bad mic for you?
I don't know. Hello.
Check. You take that one.
Come in, Rangoon. Is that okay? No, okay.
Patrick, you're going to have to speak up. I know that's
Okay.
tough.
All
I know
right.
you like to lay low, but
Check.
I'm only at the Star Tribune in Hubbard now, right? I think that's it.
first of all,
Bring back the sports show. That was the easiest $3.25 a week I ever made in my life. 20 frickin' years.
We've also got the Reusse Unchained podcast.
Oh yeah, but that's part of Hubbard.
bring back this. You could do MSC could carry the Twins now as a possibility because
Yes,
they're
that's
looking. They're
true.
going to be looking for somebody. To
Boy,
carry.
oh boy.
So
What is that going to do to these ungodly amount of money that they're paying out for these players? What if those regionals go belly up?
I mean,
what's
I
gonna
think that's what's going to happen.
Yeah.
This is their last year, though, right? This is the last year of the
Well, yeah, but that's,
agreement so
I think
far?
I think it's going to be the last year of a lot of people's agreement.
Yes.
But yes,
Yeah, but we got to get another sports channel in town.
this even for us.
Yeah, I think the
we
teams.
just rolled into this. There's not going to be any intro. I was going to introduce.
Okay,
you.
I'm sorry. Yeah,
I mean, even for our low
Hey,
standards.
Joe and I did radio for 20 years and never said what station we were on or what show it was or what time it was or
Okay.
anything. We just started.
And we model our podcast after you, too.
on,
There's
the-
no question
on
about that.
Saturday Sports Talk, they would be playing the song, heard it on the grapevine, and Suits wouldn't be anywhere in sight yet. Play it again.
Yeah, when we used to do ours Sundays on KFAN, John would call it. I would come in hot
Yeah.
because I would be
meaning after a brunch.
on the rooftop of Stella's,
Yeah.
and I would go, oh shit, I gotta do a show in like 35 minutes.
Yes.
And then I would come in hot, and I remember one time our producer said, "Yeah, you really are coming in hot." And I said, "How could you tell?" And she said, "No one with that hair would come in sober."
One of my radio highlights was when we got fired on the afternoon drive time show that I don't know how long it lasted, but they told us with 3 months in advance you're going to be sitting. And I promised everybody we're going to work harder than we've ever worked these 3 months. If we'd only done that previously, if we'd only just shrugged it off for the last 6 years, we probably wouldn't be getting fired. But that's okay.
I like to establish a level of effort that I can consistently maintain. I don't like to.
That's a good idea.
Like I don't like to throw a shutout on opening day because I'm going to have
Yes.
like a 6.50 ERA for the rest of the season. So I don't want to have people really getting.
That's
hopes.
true.
What I was going to say to introduce you was to congratulate you that you are racking up awards all of a sudden. It's always good to see a young upstart such as yourself start to get recognized in the local media.
I told my wife when the sports writer guy called me that I had shared it with Andy Greeter, the sports writer of the year. The second time in my life, the other one I shared with Charlie Walters. So I'm 0-52-2 in that contest. Won't even get you in the NHL playoffs. I said, a lot of people think I'm done. We're getting these things. They're not giving me these because they like me that well. They just figure I'm going away, and
It's better than In Memoriam.
if she doesn't find something better to watch on TV than Housewives from someplace, I'm not quitting. They're going to have to drag me out. So anyway.
Wait, have you, we might not even talk baseball, depending on what the answer. Have you been watching Housewives?
They have gone completely to hell. No, I don't watch them, but my wife does.
I'm going to be honest.
They are. Those Orange County, is it the Beverly Hills ones?
He has been watching Housewives.
Man.
Because at my household, we long ago ran out of things to watch. Because we don't leave the house. And this is the first time I've left the house in like 6 years. But we've started watching Housewives. So when my ears perk up now, anytime anybody is like Housewives,
Well, she watches them
I'll try
all,
to
but
keep it to.
She can also tell you if they caught any fish on the Bering Sea, too, whatever the hell they're doing up
Maybe-
there. So.
Does she want to? Would she like to co-host a Housewives related podcast? That's my next. But yeah, you want a Lifetime Achievement Award at the Diamond Awards.
Yes?
Then, like you mentioned, you got the National Sports Media Association's Sports Writer of the Year tie.
Minnesota.
Right.
Tie.
Minnesota.
You won it yourself last year, right?
Well, that's. I'm going to be honest. That's why I brought it up.
Yes, right. I have never found out who votes. Do you know who votes?
No.
I've never received
But here's how
one.
you know I didn't vote this year because I didn't win back-to-back years. I always assume it's just.
Well, Charlie Walters won it for like 18 straight years, right? So they called me 30 years ago and say, "Hey, you won the Sports Writer of the Year." I said, "Oh, that's okay." A week later, they called me back and said it was a tie. You and Charlie. I think Charlie called up and demanded a recount. They probably found out he won, but they couldn't call me back and tell me I lost. So
But also, like, what
I don't know where that plaque is, by the way.
what happened for the 30 years in between? You get a
Yeah,
tie
I don't know.
like in 1977, and then 2023 or 2022.
I think I changed my style. I've stopped being acerbic enough to win any prizes like that. So, I don't know.
But we also found out yesterday at the media luncheon that you are number 5 on the BBWA roll.
The guy missing is Murray Chass, somebody told me.
Okay.
So Murray must have just told him he's inactive because he's still with us. So
Do you remember? So the way it works, like I'm on the BBWA roll list.
Which is the Baseball Writers Association.
Yeah, Baseball Writers
of America,
Association
right?
of America. We get these.
What are you, 620 or
Yeah,
something?
620, something like that. And you move up like 40 spots a year. He's literally number 5, and as you said yesterday, I hope the guy retired
Yeah,
and didn't
not-
die. Then I moved up.
there's only 2 options when you get that high, and say you're no longer active in any form, or you're no longer with us. One of the two. Ira Burkow, the great Ira Burkow, started at the Tribune 100 years ago when Sid was his sports editor, and that was a great match in heaven. But he wrote, when he got to 20, he wrote a column. It's like watching your life pass me. It's like your trip to the casket, the thing. I got to tell you can I tell you my favorite Sid story? I'm a copy boy over there in 1963, 4, and 5. And Ira is this young hotshot from the Northwestern School of Journalism that's a great flowery writer, right? And Sid's got him on the desk and doing all this stuff. And they send him to the Kentucky Derby, which pisses Sid off something because it's coming out of Sid's travel budget. And Red Smith had once written, he was a big Red Smith admirer, and once went and interviewed Man of War, and something
the
like
horse,
that. Yeah.
Man of War. Okay, gotcha.
So Ira, remembering this, went out and we can use a profanity here once in a while.
Yes,
Oh, yeah.
please do.
He went out and he interviewed Citation, who was still alive out at his farm, and he interviewed Citation. Sid was waiting all day to see what he filed. In the old Western Union thing, there used to go ding, 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 ding. Sid went over there. He turns white and he said, "I knew this was a mistake. He interviewed a fucking horse." And God, he was a treat.
Well, okay, speaking of Sid, sort of.
Mm-hmm.
Someone brought up a book to have you autograph. So you have a fairly new book out that did you co-write it? would you say?
Chip wrote everything in between. I wrote the first chapter and the last chapter, and the epilogue. But I was very surprised to open it up and find out it was a narrative. I thought I was just telling you, I didn't really become. It didn't take over my life. Let's say I didn't know what Chip had in mind, but.
But how did you choose? Because Chip is, first of all, a great writer, probably one of the nicest people of all time.
Yes, he is. He beat me up to do it. I said, but so if I didn't have to do any work, I was willing to do it. But that's
what I say to this podcast.
But the problem is, I wrote Sid's book in '97, and I used to laugh about how horseshit do you have to be to have somebody else write your book? Another sports writer, and now I'm number 2 on that list. So.
Yeah.
It's a quick read though. They made a trade paperback out of it, so it only cost you like $18.
All right.
So it's okay. It's not bad. I don't.
And when you
I'm
come back,
going to read it one of these days. I've read snips.
And when you come back to the Meltdown next year, they can sign it. You can sign it.
Yeah.
We should have brought.
We should have had the publisher.
I've signed a few today. Who's going to get on my ass about my Louis Arise take here? Let's go. Come on.
I want to talk about Miguel
This is
Sano.
the crowd that likes Joey Gallo better than Louis Arise, right?
I did.
And we're off.
I did hear a rumor that one of your goals for tonight was to teach the crowd ball, because this crowd, being the Miguel Sano sycophants that they are.
I'm not teaching you ball. I'm teaching you ball the way I appreciated it. That's all.
Okay.
That's all I'm saying. That's all I'm saying.
Well, what I mean.
Hey, when you were at the Diamond Awards, right? Were you at the Diamond Awards? No, you weren't there.
I was.
I think I know where they're going to, if they got to trim that for BSN, I know where they're going to get their 6 or 7 minutes.
Yeah, right.
Don't you?
Well, I love that, every other, like Carlos Correa goes up there.
Yeah.
And has, a 30-second introduction.
Yes. What was
by Dick Bramer. But Patrick Reusse gets an introduction, and it goes like this. First, Lavelle Neal has to introduce Dan Barrero and Joe Suchere. Then Dan Barrero has to introduce Patrick Reusse. Then Joe Suchere has to introduce Patrick Reusse. And then finally Patrick Reusse gets on stage. I love that we had like a 4-part series to introduce you to the stage.
Falvey yesterday said, is Barrero still talking, The introduction was amazing. It went on and on and on.
The man's on for 3.5 hours talking every day. Like, he's still...
But I will say, in Dan's behalf, the best part of the book's the foreword.
He did the foreword?
Yeah, he did the foreword, and he actually worked at it. So,
well, when you write something every 20 years.
Yeah, that's true. But it was. I did pull a few punches in that one. There was a couple that I thought of that I just kind of sat on that were really too harmful to the Twins' image.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, this is the time to pull them out here, Patrick.
You're getting soft in your old age.
Yes.
Well, they were honoring him.
No.
Listen, that's how he got the Sports Writer of the Year. He said, "I'll dial it back a little bit.
I'll dial it back from 9 to 8."
Well, I have in this era of 4 columnists now, and we got 3 guys writing the Vikings, and Chip does a lot of great stuff, but. The guys, I write the major leagues a whole lot less than I did for years because, there's a million stories out there and nobody else, why do I want to go out to the Vikings and write something that, get 2 quotes from Kevin O'Connell. And
you don't have a hot Kirk Cousins take?
No. I liked him better when he was early and obstinate in his real self, when he was his real kind of a jerk self. Now he's trying to be a nice guy.
You don't think the gold chains, that's not his real personality?
No, I don't think so.
I read, you wrote about the Gobert trade, I don't know, a week or so ago, whatever it was. So I was going to ask you, you're talking about that potentially being a horrible trade, obviously. I'm a Wolves fan, so I'm not going to get too far.
It's more than potentially, I think.
Okay. But here's what I was going to ask you. What in your coverage of the Twins for this whole time, what do you think is the worst trade that the Twins have made? Either, because I know people will often bring up Brunansky for Tommy Herr as a horrible trade. Although I think that was more based on vibes, because if you look at the numbers, Tommy Herr wasn't horrendous, and it's not like he was an amazing player beforehand, but also, obviously, Brunansky was beloved. But
TK wanted it.
Right. Well, numbers aren't everything.
TK was big on it. TK wanted a 2-hitter. That was in the days when you had a 1-hitter and a 2-hitter. And TK wanted a 2-hitter. He didn't like Lombo as an offensive
And as we all know from Kelly and from Garnhire, the second baseman has to bat second.
Yes, that's true.
It's not a bet. They will reject the lineup at the Major League Baseball offices.
Yes.
The second baseman
that is one of the great changes in the game. It doesn't make any difference who hits where. We don't want that fast little guy leading off anymore if he can't hit,
We were asking, there was the media luncheon yesterday, and we asked Baldelli, who's going to lead off now that Arise is off the team? And you would have fainted because Joey Gallo was mentioned
Oh, yeah.
among the leadoff options. It was good you weren't standing there because I looked around for Patrick.
Here's my Joey Gallo problem. The same problem I had with our old friend Miguel.
I knew I could get it.
I'm going to guess.
If there's a runner on third with one out in the 8th inning and you're one run behind, the other manager can't wait to see Miguel Sano or Joey Gallo come because you can get the strikeout, and that's my big problem is when a guy's likely to strike out when you absolutely can't stand to have a strikeout. That's my problem. Gallo's a good athlete. Anyway.
We brought that up, actually.
How about Miguel? Let's get him a job in Korea or some damn thing. What's going on?
We have Snow has not
Miguel,
hired anyways.
Snow.
If you hadn't hired Chip, you guys could have had some sort of partnership and a co-written something.
Yes.
The strikeout artist or something.
Yeah, right, Miguel. I went over to see Miguel last year at St. Paul when he had a great night.
Yeah.
His tryout
I heard
night
he was thrilled to see you.
Actually, I tried to stop in the hallway, and then Sean Aronson, who's great, went in and he said, Miguel said he doesn't want to talk to you, and he said that with a few adjectives. So I said, all righty then. We'll just have to kind of right the mood,
I like the idea.
I thought he was in good shape.
I like the idea of you following around Miguel Sano for a year, like in documentary style, like Pelotero. Mm-hmm. When they followed him around, when they were trying to sign
16.
him in the Dominican Republic as a 16-year-old, you following him around in Korea, getting the day by day of Sano trying to find his way back to the majors.
When I go back, I think when they came up with the plan to put him in right field, I don't think I immediately jumped on that as the stupidest idea ever. But
and that's a forever regret.
But yeah, it is. I mean, it was. It was just. I mean, once you saw him out, and here was the best part of that whole deal. That's when I had a condo down in Florida, which I sold. There's too many snakes down there, and some of them are reptiles. But anyway, that's why I moved out of there. But I sold it. But I'd be over there in like late January and hang out, so just walk around and. They were on. I saw Oswaldo Arcia in left field with him, trying to show him how to make the step over when you go to catch a fly ball.
Oh, holy
And
cow.
Meanwhile, Brad Stile was on the MLB Network. Said, "Yeah, he's down there every day working with our outfielders and working with our outfield coaches." And then he went to New York, I think, for some event and didn't come back up till the start of spring training. But the Twins lingo was, boy, he was out there laboring in right field to learn the trade. So
you're suggesting he's not going to have a big resurgence at this point in his career? Is that what I'm getting from this? The next 5 years of his career are not going to be.
We're not going to regret.
Where can he go where they throw slower so he can hit? No, I mean,
yeah.
I think everybody talks about the breaking ball and that. I think it was here. 90 up above the belly button.
Well, that was right. When he was on the
fastball,
fastball, he was really good. And when
up
he was
above
off
the belly
fastball,
button,
he was really
just can't catch it up to it anymore. So
softball, possibly.
Yeah.
Sort of.
I hope he gets a
there
job.
money in that?
Even though he's not a big fan of mine, I hope he gets a job. I got him in my phone, man.
That's nice of you to say.
Picture.
Picture
Miguel when we were. Picture Miguel when we were both skinny. Boy, that's a long time ago. What the hell is that?
I'll see if I can get it on the TV monitors later. You email that to me. I'll get it on the TV
I'll
monitors
send
for
it to
you.
you.
We can mix that in.
It
That'd be
was
a good one.
damnedest. Yeah.
The other thing you wrote about recently that I want to talk about was the idea of the cheap POLADs, or the POLAD pocket protectors, as they are want to say on the station we are most often
Yes,
on.
right.
And I thought you raised an interesting point, which was, you signed Correa for $200 million. The payroll now is, I don't know, $150 roughly. It's average-ish. It's been average-ish for a while. Your point was kind of, will people continue to just say that, which they've been saying rightfully for about 50 years now, or will they pivot to another very easy, no pitching, no too many strikeouts, for instance?
They pull their starters too early?
Yes, well, that's a good one too. We can make a list here. Maybe that's what we'll do. Maybe that's what we'll do
Let's
later
get a
tonight.
top 10 list, sure.
But do you feel 5 years from now, assuming they maintain their current level of spending, Correa's doing well, making $200 million, all that stuff, do you think the rallying cry for people upset with the Twins will still be cheap Polans? Is there any chance of that going away ever?
I don't know what they want. I mean, last year they had their lowest attendance since 2001, right?
Yeah.
2001.
Yeah.
And it's not like people are. Everybody who's complaining, I'm not going to any more games. You haven't been to I said this the other day. You haven't been to a game since you got in for a buck at the Metrodome for Little League Day. So shut up. If you if you like baseball, you go to a game. You're not going to say, "Oh, they didn't spend money for who do you want them to sign?" Here's the trouble with all the pitching. The guy they got for a rise,
Lopez.
hell of a year last year. Pablo Lopez, 180 innings. Bad shoulder 2021, bad shoulder 2019. They scare you. And I mean, Malley, they say Malley's coming back. Okay, forearm. It's just it's so uncertain. It's you can't, whatever plans you make, but whatever they've done, it's a better strategy than I hope Chris Archer can pitch 4 innings today.
Well, that was always.
And I hope,
Yeah.
and even if Dylan Bundy gets them all out, I'm taking him out after 5.
That was always what
perfect game. Hook his ass.
What
Come on.
confused me last season about the complaints that Baldelli wasn't letting him stay in long enough.
No.
Do you really want more Chris Archer and Dylan Bundy? And no offense to them if they
Well,
hear,
Bundy, there were a couple of games when he hooked Bundy when he's pitching against a bad team. If he's pitching against a good team, don't let him face anybody the third time. But the Angels without Mike Trout, when you can walk Ohtani, and that one day I think he had faced 16 hitters in 5 innings. Boom, 64 pitches. I don't know. I like Rocco. I think he's okay. I don't
have you told him that?
What's... Well, I told him
did that get a
yesterday,
boo?
okay, I know I took a cheap shot at you, but I couldn't resist it. So,
I mean, some just.
You're
sort
not really a Twins manager if you don't get a cheap shot from Patrick.
you know what though? I mean, they had great managers for us. Quillisi was my first one. He was fantastic. I love Mock. Mock give you the greatest quotes ever. You just had to wait 40 seconds, and then if you got a couple of Manhattans in him on a Saturday night, you're right. Terrible drinker. Not a terrible volume drinker. A terrible drinker. 3 drinks, he was
ready to go.
Leap-faced, man.
All right.
And then Mock was great. The only one I never got along with was Rabbit, Ray Miller. I didn't like the Rabbit. The Rabbit didn't like me. So, but the rest of them are great,
I mean, the willingness, maybe the amount of alcohol involved has played a part in this, but the willingness for a manager to give quotes on the record that are, I'd call juicy, seems to have really declined over the.
That comes from above, they want. Here's the biggest difference is the message used to be put out by the newspapers and the media. We used to send out the message. Now they do everything in their power for the team to send out the message.
For the PR team
Don't you
to
think
send out the message.
They have their own website. They have
everybody.
The guys on the.
It's not unique to baseball or to sports.
No.
Right.
Yeah, right. It's America, but BSN. Back in the days when, other TV guys were on the broadcast. That was not the case, Harry Carey famously to Jimmy Pearsall. Jorge Orta dropped a fly ball, and he said, not Harry, said, Jimmy, how can a guy who grew up in Mexico blows a ball in the sun? That we're not going to hear that anymore.
The one other thing I wanted to make sure to ask you about, obviously Joe Mauer yesterday, they announced he's going into the Twins Hall of Fame. Not really a shocker there, but now that you're in the top 5 or the bottom 5 for the BBWA, how are you?
I was skeptical when he retired, but the more you look at it, and the more, the Harold Baines era started, and now, I mean, if Scott Rowland gets in, Joe Mauer's got to get in. I mean, I voted for Scott Rowland, but Joe Mauer, I mean, we got Tony in, we got Kirby in, with great meteoric accomplishments. Somebody, who said this the other day? Was that you? Somebody said that made a good point. If Joe's career had ended when he got his concussion in 2012, he'd be a slam dunk.
Right.
He'd be like Puck. But he had those 6 years where
it leaves people with a different memory
last
of him.
impression. Yeah. I mean, hey, he caught for 10 years and he won 3 batting titles, and nobody else has ever won one in the American League. It would have been. He'd be a layup, but it'll take 3-4 years, but he'll make it.
I kind of think that too. I also just think, and you mentioned this, catching 10. I mean, people have this view of Johnny Bench or Ivan Rodriguez, these guys who just caught 15, 20 years. But realistically, I think there's only 9 catchers in the Hall of Fame, which seems ridiculous.
It is amazing,
which is absurd, because the problem is, if you're going to apply the same sort of numerical standard, not many catchers are going to get even 2,000 hits or even 400 homers.
And one of those catchers is Rick Farrell, and if you put him in, you should have about 300 catchers in there. So Matt Walbeck should be in there, for God's sake. So it is a different.
We should have a bingo card where it just had a bunch of 1990s Twins. He said Matt Walbeck.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
You need Lenny Webster for a.
Joe is, history will treat him better than
I think so
than
too.
the immediacy.
I also just think, as weird as this is, I think he is seen as a stronger candidate outside of Minnesota than he is in Minnesota, because I feel like fans, but also media, voting media, became so obsessed with the contract, but then also the injuries, and I don't think.
When you look at it, the games played, he would have been a Rocco Iron Man, right? I mean,
Right.
Well,
I think they traded Ursula because he didn't get hurt enough. That's why I think he was too available. They didn't want a guy; they wanted him to get off his feet. That was my theory on that one. What did he do wrong? I know they got a surplus infielders, and
I'm also shocked
they like Miranda.
Didn't get more for him. Like they didn't give him away for a
They
double
gave him
reliever.
away. Yeah. Miranda supposedly lost 15 pounds or something.
Really?
Yeah, maybe he can move. Yeah, supposedly.
Miranda's 50 pounds to lose.
This allows me to make the joke I was planning to make, which is that right now we look like the before, and the before.
When is the last time you could sit at a table and be called skinny? That's congratulations.
It was thank you.
So
Congratulations.
that kind of boots. You guys are real unpredictable what you're booing.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess you're standing up for my honor, I guess. I appreciate that.
So how's Twins Daily doing? Good? Seth didn't make the trip.
How's Twins Daily doing, gang? Let's hear it. Twins Daily setting records all across the board in January.
How's the strip, Patrick?
Early deadlines. But I saw something the other day. We got the 3rd largest newsroom in American newspapering.
Right?
Yes. Yeah. Because everybody else they haven't cut staff. You
guys have got an online presence that is respected throughout the industry. Like that's the fact how many memberships you have and the subscription model that you have, where it's sort of like, okay, after a certain number of page views, you just got to start paying. Like it shows that you get to 20 pages a month or whatever it is. It shows that you value this, so sign up.
Yes.
You know what I mean? So
all the guys who are saying cheap pull ads, let's spend a little of your money, you cheap pricks. What the hell? The cheap pull ad guys.
On a newspaper subscription? That's what you're
saying? Anything.
But I do have to say, you can usually get The Athletic for like $1.99.
That's right.
It's a lot cheaper.
Hey, when Mr. Pillow was running all those specials, He got the feds investigated him for always saying that it was on special. Like
Yeah.
Athletic, we're going to get them next. Everything. It's always on special.
The feds.
You know. Why don't we have Mr. Pillow here? I could have gotten him. It would have
that
been
would've
good.
been fun.
I know that idiot.
I would have loved you
It's
two on the same
amazing.
stage together.
It is the strangest
That'd be
human.
great.
He is the strangest human being of all time. And by the way, I think we met him he was one of Hubbard's advertisers when we had the twins. So he was part of the group they brought down there every year for spring training. I think he sent us a couple of pillows. Nothing.
Do you think he can get us to
Terrible.
reverse?
Not a good pillow?
Not a great pillow. No,
Can you?
not a great pillow.
Shocked by that.
Do you think
Yes.
he can get the result of the 2004 ALDS overturned?
Yeah, I don't.
Maybe we bring in Jesse Crane
That's
instead of
right.
Joe Nathan at that point.
That's right. That was the worst one. Is that the Rincon game? 04?
That one killed me.
They all blend together.
I mean,
That's
I-
all.
That
I-
was a good-
I think that might have been.
That
I
was
think
a-
03 was the Jesse Crane and.
I'm going
the
to guess
Yankee
that it
Stadium.
was a game where the Twins had a lead in the middle of the game.
Yeah, and Ruben Sierra.
And then the bullpen got involved, and then
Oh, God, that was a good team.
Yeah.
That's when Gardy made the great pregame speech. It's a little gender offensive, but don't take it personally. It's a little gender offensive. And it doesn't reflect badly on Gardy. It kind of reflects on baseball. Okay, but
let's hear this.
Game four, they're now behind 2-1. Gardy says, we're going to beat their ass today. We're going to go to New York tomorrow, beat the hell out of them, drink their beer, and screw their women, he said. Not offensive. It was a battle cry that would have never been done.
They got beer, hopefully, at least.
Yeah.
They checked
No, they
one
never
out of
got
three.
the back because Ronnie Rincon, who what was Ronnie's great quote? Nobody'd want to be in my pants today, and wanted my shoes today. Wani said nobody'd want to be in my pants today because he served up the home run to Sierra, and he hadn't given up a run in months. That bullpen was fantastic.
Who was the guy from Australia that was just before him?
Graham
Balfour.
Balfour.
Guy
Balfour.
was just mowing people down.
He
The
ended
Yankees
up-
celebrated when Gardy took him out.
He ended up having a great career, man.
We're now relitigating playoff losses.
All right.
Okay.
Wait, I wanted one. We'll talk more. I have two things about the current state of
Yes.
baseball. Number one, now that we got you worked up a little bit, I think this is good timing. The rules changes that are coming in for this season. What are your thoughts on? I mean, we'll stick to the basic ones, but the shift limitations. Let's start with that.
They have to try something to get left-handed hitting back in the game, I think. And I don't like the idea that they can't have their feet on the grass because second basemen for 100 years have had their feet on the grass when a left-handed hitter's up. But I do like the fact that they're going to, keep you. You get to see a shortstop again, I hope, right? The shortstop's going to have to play closer to second when a right-handed hitter's up. So you're going to get to see Correa do this more than twice a year because the guy's not standing there. So I don't mind that. And
Will it resurrect? Will Max Kepler become a consistent 320 hitter now?
I don't know. They got him sitting out in the front of the stadium with a for sale sign, and nobody will take him. So, they can't get anything for him.
I have written a nearly identical.
Yes.
Here's why the Twins should trade or could trade
Yes.
Max Kepler for like 8 years in a row.
Yes. And and the pitch clock. Yeah, like you got to try. You got to speed up the game. I don't think it'll help because the youth of America has moved on. There's a hardcore 10%. I had a high school coach tell me a couple of years ago, has been in it forever, says they still play baseball. They don't watch it. They'll watch a video of somebody, like Dan Ford base running or something like that. But, it's not
I think that's
a
true.
modern day Dan Ford,
but-
but they don't watch it.
My cousin, this is like 5, 6, 8 years ago, played for Hopkins, and he was their shortstop. And I remember I went over to their house to watch playoff games with my uncle.
Yeah.
And he could not have been less interested. And we were sitting there saying the best baseball player in this room has the least interest in actually watching.
And I don't know how you get it. You know, if you write stories, you can see the same thing. Attention span does not exist.
Yeah.
All reactions are whatever the summary on the Twitter, you know, they send out the column or whatever it is on Twitter, and they all react to what the summary says, even though half the time the summary doesn't have anything to do with what you wrote. So it's a.
But that is why people are relying on your balanced, measured Twitter takes for the quick hits about the game.
Right.
Right?
Yeah. Twitter, if I quit drinking on April 27th, 1981, nobody more surprised than me, by the way, that it is stuck. It's stuck. And when I went through, I was supposed to get out on the Friday, but Memorial Day weekend, St. Mary's, they let me stay the whole weekend. They didn't quite think that. They said, we're going to let you out on Tuesday. It's too nice of weather out there.
Clear, in the 1970s, when Bhutan was playing in Ball 4, we all learned that baseball players aren't paying attention to the baseball then either.
No.
Right?
No.
I mean, they're baseball players.
What I'm saying is...
It's like having to do your work all the time. You don't want to do that.
But anyway, I can't even remember where I was going there. We got interrupted. But
no, welcome to the podcast.
It is amazing. Everybody always says, boy, you got this great memory for baseball. I said, yes, and I only go back to the house twice when I leave, generally. Phone, there's three things you need. Keys, billfold, and phone, and I only forget two of those, generally.
Yes, this is a common refrain in my household is, how can you not remember I told you that? And then she'll say, what was Joe Mauer's on-base percentage in 2012? And I'll be like, oh, don't be silly. It was
I was watching
416.
I was watching Phil Nevin's kid is playing somewhere.
Yes, Tyler Nevin.
Tyler Nevin. I was watching a game. Tyler Nevin hit a home run to right field. And I said, his dad,
Phil Nevin,
in the little time he was with the Twins, he hit it in Baltimore. That was the thing. He hit it to right center in Baltimore. And I said, his dad hit a home run there, right center in Baltimore. To win a game, because I was covering it. But I didn't even remember that he'd only played for him for a month, and he only hit one home run, but it was to right center field in Baltimore, which surprised me too. So
Okay, before we let you go,
yes,
let's get are you prepared to make an official prediction for the 2023 Minnesota Twins season? Or do you need to see more? Do you need to see?
I haven't seen anything yet, but I am not down on the administration's movements that much. I don't like, I like to rise because I like to see a good at bat. Okay,
right.
I'm old and I like to see a good at bat. If Duran. It frightens me that you have a guy throwing 102 and can he make 60, appearances again? Pitching is so. I don't think you can make predictions because you don't know how pitching is going to turn out. But they should be better in Cleveland. I think they should be better in Cleveland. But last year they should have been better in Cleveland too.
Better than the White Sox.
And the Whiteys, Senile Tony's not managing anymore, so
that's worth 5 wins for him.
I remember. But they're as good as the rest of them. I think.
So this is second
or third in the AL Central.
Well, now that they don't get to play each other as often, 86 wins will win it.
Okay.
Win the Central, and
the Twins will get 84.
Where will they finish? Let's see. Okay, I picked the Mighty Whiteys last year. I'll pick them again, but
see, now that boo I get. There you go. I understand.
There we go.
Twins second, and Cleveland third, maybe, and then
really,
I think Kansas City's. Detroit thought they were going to be good last year. Kansas City's going to be a little better. They got the young guys, but it's. Thank God we're in a horse crap division, all right? That's all I got to say.
This was, to me, the most quintessential Patrick Reusse prediction, which is in my head as I asked him. I thought, well, he's not going to pick the Twins to win the division.
But
what I didn't realize,
he's got to be the contrarian on
he
top
was
of
going
that.
to pick Chicago to win the division, not Cleveland. So even when it's somewhat predictable, it's unpredictable.
Here's my deal. Cleveland, everything ungodly good stuff happened to him. I mean, they had some injuries with the pitchers. But he played the same damn lineup for 3 months and lost like one player for 2 weeks or something like that. That's not doable.
They were a healthy team.
You know, they supposedly, what was the early rumor? A rise for Plesac or one of those two guys, Civali or both of them maybe. I got to think he would have loved to go there and play and hit in front of Ramirez, right?
Oh my God,
that would have been pretty.
So you're
good
saying
for him.
officially 86 and 76, second place, and then you also said, what did you say, Joey Gallo MVP?
No, I did
League
not
MVP?
say that. If it's a hot summer and you're at the ballpark sitting down in that bowl, you'll enjoy having Joey Gallo there. The fresh breeze will kind of overtake the stadium. Good
go.
seats down there by home plate. I don't know. Everybody who's ever covered him likes him. They say he's a good guy, good talker. He just,
Well, that's the hot side of the stadium.
But
That's
here's
the
the
sunny
deal.
part, yeah.
He hit 160, and they can convince themselves that that's not the real him. But the Orioles were trying to tell themselves that with Chris Davis about the
right.
same
That's right.
time of his
Yeah,
career.
the
right?
160 is not it's 199 is the real him. I think is part of the
right.
problem.
But I think that's. I don't know. It's just it is so biggest. I think all of baseball's problems. The biggest one is it's so damn hard to hit. That's what makes it low.
See, you are ready to write that book with Miguel Sano.
Yeah. No. I mean. Okay.
How about that as a title?
Here's the trouble. Gallo and Sano, they never get to see the same guy 3 times. You know, maybe they had a chance to catch up if they saw him a 3rd time. Joey Gallo has never faced a right-handed pitcher 3 times in a row, probably, unless his team was behind 8-0. Right. If Joey Gallo in the 5th inning never gets to see a right-handed pitcher, right? I mean, here comes the lefty. See you, Joey. But
do you have a Glen Perkins story that you would like to share before he gets up here? Possibly that paints him in a horrendous
I will
light?
say this about Glenn. Glenn and I watched a couple Super Bowls together down at. He had a place. He had a place that I could have fit my place in twice, but it was the same complex, or 3 times.
Fort Myers.
But in Fort Myers, and we'd get down there early and watch the Super Bowl, and we had some good conversations. One time I had a 6-pack of beer, and Glenn enjoyed it, so that was good. So, no, Kurt Perky's a great guy, and I think he's got at least one hockey-playing daughter, so that's a full-time job.
You have a hockey-playing granddaughter.
I got a hockey-playing granddaughter. Hey, I'm very proud of her. 2 weeks ago in Duluth, she got in a fight with a kid from Blaine, and they both got thrown out of the tournament for the last 2 days. The girl pulled her ponytail. What did you expect? And the good thing about my granddaughter, is she's so embarrassed about this. Somebody mentioned it to it, and she said, "You want to see it?" And she showed it on the video. So. You know what's amazing about the world?
No.
Minor league baseball.
Imagine.
Minor league baseball, we used to have to look at the Twins' notes 2 days later to find out how that team in Orlando did.
Right.
And now you could say, look what happened to him in the 5th inning here.
You can find that every night on twinsdaily.com.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Good.
All right. Thank you very much, Mr. Reusse. Give me a
Alrighty.
hand. Come on.
All righty.
We're very lucky to have
thank
him
you.
here. He'll be around for about 5 minutes. Since he's got to run, he's got dinner plans. We're going to be back in, 15, 20 minutes with Glen Perkins. Thank you very much. If you have not gotten your tickets in for the raffle, please do so. We'll see. And make sure that you tweet about this. We've got a pair of Raycon wireless earbuds to give away. You've got to tweet #Winter Meltdown and take a pic to do it. And as many tweets as you do, that's how many entries you get. So go for it.
A word from our sponsor, the OG sponsor, Harry's Razors.
That's right. They've been with us a long time.
Almost as long as we've been doing Winter Meltdowns.
And my shaving absolutely changed. It changed in part because I learned when I got my Harry's razor to go against the grain when I shave. I shave once with the grain and once against the grain.
You learned at like age 50 how to do it? So
Well, here's the thing. I always avoided it before because my razor wasn't sharp enough. Because
That's
I
what
didn't
I
have a
learned.
new razor all the time.
That's what I think a lot of people learn is when you can use Harry's razors and you can just go on harrys.com and order something and have it delivered to you in a timely fashion.
half price.
And inexpensively.
Right.
You don't have to stick with a worn-out, rusty razor for like 12 years.
Exactly
I swear
right.
that's like what a lot of people do,
oh, yeah.
me included.
Yeah.
And that's really, I think, the biggest thing is like, this razor I'm working with right now is a little worn out.
Yeah.
And it's like the old days, you'd have to go to a store. You have to ask some put-out employee to unlock a case for you. And it's like, I'll stick with this old razor for another 3 months. Yeah. Now it's like, a couple of clicks, and you can get a nice discount too, or you can get well, we're about to tell you what you can get. If you're a Gleeman and the Geek listener, you can look sharp all year long with Harry's. You can get a $15 Truman Shave trial set for just $3. And here's what you get. You get the 5-blade German engineered razor with the weighted handle.
They bought a German factory to make razors.
Yeah. Foaming shave gel and a travel cover. You get all that stuff. And then you can get replacement blades whenever you need them delivered with refills as low as $2. So you go to Harry's, Harrys, harrys.com/Gleeman. That's harrys.com/Gleeman. You can get that whole Truman Shave trial set for just $3.
And welcome back to Twins Daily's Winter Meltdown. Let's hear it for for Patrick Reusse. I'm John Bonus at TwinsDaily.com. With me, Aaron Gleeman.
Still me. Glenn, you're in way too good a shape to be on this stage.
I'm just way younger than Patrick. Give me some time.
We need you to go put on about 50 and come back.
I'm no longer the skinny guy on the
We
stage.
should have him sit in the middle. I feel like we're lopsided. Like I was on a flight
You're right.
once where they said we need to remove 5 bags. And I thought, that's not a great sign for this flight because that's that much weight. But I can kind of see the logic now that we're doing this. First of all, I mean, the intro for Reusse went off the rails immediately. So I'll just say, 3-time All-Star closer, Glen Perkins. How about that, friends? And now, would you call it full-time media member, Glen Perkins?
Gosh, it feels like it.
How is it being a media member? Did you have, when you were playing? I mean, you were known for having a outgoing personality, and you did some interviews and you did stuff like that. But did you think, when you after your first or second All-Star appearance, do you think, 10 years from now, I'm gonna be doing this?
Right. You know what? No. And really what happened was I had taken a year off, didn't do anything 2018. Then 2019, that winter, I'm like, I got to find something to do. And so I met with
was not doing it?
I met with Dave St. Peter, and he brought it up. He said, what do you think about doing TV? And I'm like, I was thinking more something like coaching, helping out, like on the field, player side, and
Maybe
so why not?
Maybe they didn't want you over there.
they might not. They might not. And so it was Dave. Dave got me in and kind of taken off from there.
I mean, I do think it's amazing. I'm going to try to say this without denigrating any of the previous announcers, but it is amazing how much the broadcast, like the approach to the Twins broadcast has changed, especially because the play-by-play guy, Dick Bramer, obviously hasn't changed. But I feel like between...
No, but he has.
Right, that's what I'm saying. It's like, but obviously Justin coming in before you, and then they had LaTroy for a while. They had Smalley has been there, for years and years, but I think even Smalley takes, I guess, more of a newer school approach than Blyleven did, obviously. Yep. And then you joining, I feel like it has almost kind of reinvigorated Bramer just because it forces him to maybe bring up topics that he never would have brought up with Blyleven, for better or worse. So I feel like you guys have kind of pushed him past where he was comfortable with, or kind of the...
Well, he seems to relish it, though.
Yes,
almost.
I think he enjoys it.
I don't know that he was uncomfortable with it before as much as he did what he was supposed... He's the straight man.
Yes.
You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
he guides the ship, but I think he, like a lot of average baseball fans, have an appetite for it. the conversations that we have off the air are fantastic. He certainly wants to continue to learn. He knows where the game is heading. I don't think it's an accident that the broadcasts have trended the way that they have with the front office that the Twins have.
Right.
They have a pretty significant say in who talks about what on air and who they have doing those things. So these guys obviously very analytically driven, and they want us to I don't want to say be a mouthpiece for them, but to educate fans of the why of some of the things they do. The trade they just made, case in point, it's a difficult one for an average fan to understand. There's a reason that they did that, and it has more to do with numbers and projections and what is a singles hitting first baseman / DH worth versus a guy that you're going to get to start, maybe throw 300, 320 innings over the next 2 years.
We should have had you explain it to Patrick before you left. No, I think you're right. I think there's a fear of older school announcers. Even, like you said, Bramer's not against this stuff, but I think the fear for even at the production level, people running the broadcast itself, they're afraid, like, are we going to get bogged down trying to kind of explain this stuff for the first time or the first 5 times to make people comfortable? But the feeling that we've always had, and it's part of why we started doing this podcast, is if you just talk about it, you don't really have to explain it.
I fully agree with that, and that's my goal. I do, like, when I do pregame shows, I'll do like a stats-driven thing, use the video board to explain some number or some metric. But on a broadcast, I think for me, if I put myself in a viewer's chair and the announcer is talking about some metric, some number, whatever it might be, grab your phone and look it up while you're watching the game.
Right.
And do a little. I do that all the time. If I could be watching a TV show and they're talking about something, and I go look it up on my phone, learn more about it while I'm watching a show. I think that baseball, with it not being nonstop action, that there's opportunities for fans to dive further into things while listening to us, watching us, whatever.
Do you feel like the new focus on that from the Twins organization is helping you, like in terms of finding additional time or finding additional things? Like, you are certainly somebody, even back in your playing days, you would talk about, sabermetric ideas and how much it changed your approach, even your own approach to the game, and how much you would talk about it with other players. And the fact that the organization and the broadcast team is moving that direction, I got to think that you got to be thinking, well, that's a good thing for me.
It definitely is. And
right.
I think that being on, like, I was on the front edge of that, but it was eye-opening to me. Derek and Thad's first year running this team was 2017, my last year. And as I was rehabbing my shoulder, I went down, and I was in high A at the time, Fort Myers, in the bullpen with those guys on a rehab assignment. And they were all talking about the numbers, the spin rates, the pitch, the spin axis, those kind of things. And I'm like, wow, this is very different down here than it is up in the big league level that year or obviously previous years. So they implemented that. I saw that. It was very obvious what direction the game was heading.
And has that focus worked its way up the ladder? Like, I think your point being that they're emphasizing that at the lower levels at that point because that's where they are. Like that they've got those new kids. They can hit them. They don't have to try and proselytize or prophetize to the people in the upper one. They can just start with the ones on the lower
guys
level
on the
and
big
watch
league
them move
roster.
up.
The guys on the big league roster, a lot of them were lost cause. I was
right.
speaking to nobody most of the time. I spent more time defending myself about conversations that I would have or ideas that I would bring up.
That's the fun. I remember years and years ago, you wrote the foreword to the Baseball Perspectives Annual when I was editing it, and you told a story in there. You were on like some boat during the off season with, like, I think Dunsing was on there, maybe Kadai, who, and you were saying they were kind of giving you shit for what at the time were newer school things, but now have become sort of common.
The stuff that I started with doesn't even, like, it's so far beyond that now.
And that's only, 10 years ago, basically, or something like that.
Yeah, it was 10, 12 years ago that I started getting printed out reports after a game.
Well, and that's the thing I always try to say to people is there's this feeling still that the newer school is more like media or writers or people like us. But I got to say, like, if you walk into the Twins clubhouse, their best, highest paid player knows more about this stuff than I will ever know.
Yeah,
Carlos Correa. And there are some players who aren't that into it, but I would say 5 years from now, it's going to be 80% of the clubhouse.
It's from when I first started talking about those things, it's flipped on its head. If I was one of 3 guys on a 25-man roster that was into it, now there's 22 guys or 23 guys or 26.
It's not just, I would say, like, the depth of what they're into. Like, I will bring up stuff sort of walking on eggshells sometime thinking, like, I don't want this guy to look at me and be like, shove me in a locker, basically, because I'm a nerd. And then quickly you find out, I remember Sandy Leone, who was their 3rd catcher last year. I approached him I was working on a story about pitch framing and all that, and I started to kind of phrase it in a way, and I'm like, I'm hoping this guy just doesn't hate this. 5 minutes later, he's talking about numbers that are above my head, and I feel like the rate at which that's happened in the last 5, 8, 10 years, it's amazing. And so that's why I think there's more appetite for it on broadcasts, on podcasts, whatever it is, than most people even realize, because there is no barrier for entry now into clubhouses. Most of the best players, like I remember reading an article by our Cincinnati writer about Joey Votto, and Joey Votto's into this stuff, and he's going up to young guys and he's bringing them in. And so I almost feel like at this point, if there's a fan or a media member who's not somewhat fluent in newer school metrics or stats or whatever, they've fallen behind not only most of the audience, but the players in the front office.
Yeah, and I think as a broadcaster, that's our responsibility. This is how the game is being played. I will say, I think the scale is tipped a little bit too far with some of like baseball decisions, in-game decisions.
Here we go. Here's the backlash.
But
old school media guy going back.
But what I think happened is 2020, when they had all that time to sit around, they were able to really break things down and figure out how to maximize every small little thing. And I think baseball, like we could go on forever about shifting and those things, but they had too much time on their hands during that layoff.
Yeah, I believe that.
And I think the product in 2018, 2019 was better than the product was in 21 and 22. I think that it'll end up going back the other way. These things always ebb and flow.
Right. Well, and they're trying to do that with some like the shift limitation.
Yeah.
I do think there has
also
been
juicing the ball.
They've almost, to your point, they've kind of maximized efficiency for all of these areas, but the aesthetic value of it.
Yeah, at the expense of the quality of the product on the field.
I think that's definitely true. So wait, so have you found out how many, because you're going to do mostly TV, are you doing some radio this year? Or just TV?
I'm not sure about that. I have a feeling that the fans are going to be sick of me by the end of the year. I'm going to be on TV a lot.
That's good.
Yeah.
Oh, God help
I hope
us.
so.
You going to do something about the beard?
This is off-season length.
All right, okay.
Yeah.
Good, all right.
Are you going to do something about the beard? Just because you are incapable of growing a beard.
Well, that is the truth. That is the
Do
sad
not
truth.
rip
It's- I lash out because
You're follically
I've been
challenged.
secure. That's true.
It's
absolutely true.
Just you're sitting between two gorgeous beards. No, one gorgeous beard.
Yeah.
Okay, so one thing I definitely want to talk to you about. I remember we came out to your compound in wherever the hell it was, like 8 hours away, like maybe 4 years ago, maybe something like that. I think it was
3-4 years
the
ago.
year after you finished up playing.
Yeah.
it
one of
was
the things-
January of 2020.
January of 2020. Really?
Yes.
Okay.
What ended up happening, like in the next couple of months? After that?
Yep.
But one of the things we talked a lot about was obviously your transition from starter to reliever, which ended up working out pretty well for everyone involved. And I think it's really throughout Twins history. Like even someone like Taylor Rogers has a similar story. You go back to like Joe Nathan, almost every great reliever in Twins history. Rick Aguilera, same thing. And now we're seeing with Duran, same story. He never even got to the majors as a starter because he had injuries. But I'm also thinking about like Griffin Jax, who started, I don't know, a dozen games 2 years ago and really looked like kind of a marginal big leaguer. It looked like if he's going to hang on, it's going to be barely. They move him to the bullpen. They tell him, throw fastballs and sliders, or basically eliminate your two worst pitches.
Yep.
And one of the fascinating things that I remember talking to you about, 4 years ago, was, is it really as simple from a pitch mix or approach standpoint, moving from the rotation to the bullpen, of somebody saying to you, you throw 4 pitches, 2 of them are kind of shitty. Why don't we not throw those anymore?
Well, it's the reason that you see sliders are so frequently thrown now, because that's most guys' best pitch by result. The counterpoint to that is that the best pitch because they're throwing it?
Right.
There's a break-even point or a point of
there's diminishing returns.
Diminishing returns on it, yeah.
Right.
But I think there's no question getting rid of some pitches that suck, mine a changeup and a curveball that I used to throw, and focusing more on two things. But for me, for Joe, for Taylor Rogers, for Griffin Jacks, every guy had a significant jump in velocity, and that's what drives success as a pitcher.
That's not something that happens because they have to do something. That's something because they just get to throw fewer pitchers and can lean into it a little
shorter
more.
time, more effort. But that's why a part of the reason why starters don't throw as long now. They literally tell them, go out and give it everything you have until you don't have it. Don't pace yourself. Like we used to, as starters, pace ourselves. How far into this game can we get? I tried to throw less than a ball per batter. I tried to throw 3 pitches per batter so I could throw into the 7th or 8th inning. And now they say, give it everything you've got for as long as you can, and then we're going to get you out of there.
Do you think that's physically pacing yourself? But there's also approach-wise. I remember it was, I'll start fastballs first time through the lineup.
Yeah.
And then or the reverse. I'll go with a bunch of off-speed. Is that something that you think has changed because nobody's going to face third, fourth time through the lineup?
Yeah, well, and I mean, teams realized that strikeouts are outs 99.9% of the time, and ground balls are outs 70% of the time or 75% of the time, whatever it is. So let's try to get more strikeouts. I think that drives everything. So then it's how do you get more strikeouts? You have to throw harder. You have to throw a breaking ball with more spin, more arm speed, and you end up with basically extended relievers. That's what starters are in today's game. There's a small handful that are old school starters. But your typical starter now is just a longer max effort reliever.
Well, and so one of the things we've talked about a lot is, and I'm going to guess I know where you'll come down on this topic, but everyone looks at like Duran, let's say, and they go, okay, he was amazing as a reliever. Can they move him back to a starter? I don't think they ever will. He's one of the people, by the way, several times during the season when we were interviewing him, he would be like, well, yeah, next season when I'm starting.
Yeah,
he better not start. There is not going to be a next season when you're starting. But I think people have a hard time, because if you're looking up WAR or you're looking up whatever, it's very difficult to have more value on a counting stat.
Playing less.
Throwing 65 innings versus 175 innings. But one of the things we often talked about is why a stat like WPA, which is win probability added, has value because, yes, a starter may throw 175 innings, but they are innings 1 through 5 or 1 through 6 in a game. They have relatively low leverage. They're not unimportant, but 7th, 8th, 9th inning. And so you get to a point from a leverage index or whatever that throwing 65 innings in close games in the 8th or 9th inning, as Duran did last year,
you can have
has
a bigger
more
impact.
value.
Yeah, you can have a bigger impact on a win or a loss.
So do you feel like that's how front offices are starting to value this, but that arbitration values or even free agency are kind of lagging behind? Because I do feel like if you're a guy like Duran, you probably do want to be a starter in the back of your mind, even though you can provide more value as a reliever, but all the money is in starting, all the prestige in terms of all-star appearances and all that, except for you if you're closing, are in starting. So I feel like it's lagging behind a little bit to your point, which is if starters are going 5 innings and a lot of relievers are going 2 innings and the 2 innings are in close games late, there needs to be a correction in terms of how we're valuing these different roles.
I would assume that's coming, and starters that get paid now are the rare guy that can still throw bulk innings at a really high level. Those guys will always get paid, but yeah, I mean, there's no question you're going to see. It's good. Everything is trending to shorter term deals.
Yeah, but the problem with that is, looking at WPA, you can take a look and say relievers are really valuable, but price, as in free agent salaries, is based on supply and demand. And
you're saying any old guy off the street can be a great reliever?
I'm saying a starter who just fell apart in 2009, 2010 can still become a really good reliever, right?
Yes. They can put it back together.
But so obviously there are some starters who try to make the move to relief and it doesn't take. Do you feel like everybody throws harder in relief, as you guys were just talking about? But is that something that like you do have to work on, or did you like the day after you decided with the Twins? I think you said you like walked into Rick Anderson's office or Gardy's office and said basically like, let's do this.
Yeah.
It's not working as a starter. Let's go all in on the reliever thing and see if it works. Do you then immediately just, because in your head you're thinking I got to throw 20 pitches instead of 120 pitches, do you just almost surprise yourself like, oh, now I'm throwing 96 instead of 92?
There's no question that that's what happens, because you know that you're not trying to do anything other than like this short amount of time.
Right.
And so you can leave it all out there. I mean, it probably takes like 2 weeks for your arm to recover from being a starter, and you're gonna. I think any guy would gain a mile or two just off the top by not wearing yourself down the way that starting pitchers wear themselves down.
When you were a reliever, I mean, I understand from a starting standpoint, you could kind of have the 5-day recovery period and so on. It does feel like relievers have a shelf life. That, we are so careful about starting pitchers and how many pitches they throw and making sure. And part of that is effectiveness. But it used to be like, oh, you got to be careful around 100 pitches. You don't want to wear out the starter too much. We have never really, the version of that for relievers is much more nebulous.
Yeah,
right? It is like
I think
you can get to a point where you overwork a reliever, right? And
absolutely you can, and like what they did with Duran last year, they had him on a. I mean, you remember the Jabba rules, Jabba Chamberlain with the Yankees, right? Where it was throw 1 inning and you have 1 day off, throw 2 innings, you have 2 days off. They did that with Duran last year. He had an appearance or back-to-back appearances early in the season, and he didn't do it again until like August when they were reeling and they needed him. And that's because he throws really hard, which anybody could say curveball or slider is the worst thing for him. Throwing hard is the worst thing for your arm. The harder you throw, the worse.
The fastball is the worst.
The fastball is the worst thing for your arm. And when you throw a fastball 103 miles an hour, or like every reliever now that goes out there throws 97, that's not good for your arm. And I think the Twins did a really good job. They didn't keep their position players healthy, but they kept their bullpen pretty dang healthy throughout the season. And they monitored that as good as any team that I saw all season long.
But are there some rules that we don't really know? Like,
they have rules that you don't know for sure.
Okay.
Yeah. Rocco's got his chart. I'm surprised he hasn't scoped it out when he's sitting over in the corner in Rocco's office.
I'm keeping it from John. I don't want to tell him.
Tip your phone on its side and take a picture of Rocco's cheat sheet.
We can't say to him, hey, listen, Duran pitched the last 3 days. Is he available today?
Well,
and get an honest answer. We're not going to get that answer.
They don't want to say that because then the other team will know.
There are times that I'm in there talking with him before the media thing opens. Like we'll sneak in there. And then Dustin will come in and say, hey, I got the media ready, and then he'll take all these papers and flip them over. And it's all of their – like you can see on there, like this guy ain't playing today, this guy's not – like this guy's out for 3 weeks.
So you're the reason we have to wait like an extra half hour to go in there? Well, it is.
It's when Morno and I work together, and then we go in there, and then he doesn't shut up.
It is – you're talking about the pregame in Baldelli's office, which is before every game at home. It is funny to sit in there with you and or Morno, because I remember there was a point late last year where I was asking Baldelli about the usage of Duran and sort of being a young reliever, getting some closing opportunities. And I'm asking him this question about like how it feels for a reliever to do that. And then I spot you like in the corner of my eye. I'm like, why am I asking this shit of Baldelli? Why don't I just turn around and ask Perkins? Because that's basically what you did. Yeah. And there's points where we were talking about the home run derby one day. That Buxton was thinking about participating in the home run derby, and we were asking Baldelli, like, well, are you guys worried that that's going to take a lot out of him? And then Baldelli at some point was like, he won the home run derby. He points to Morno, and Morno's like, I don't really. It is a collection between you and Morno and actually Baldelli. You guys very rarely talk about your own playing career, to the point like I've had conversations with Morno where you almost have to like tell him that he won an MVP. Like, he won't admit that he won an MVP. Yeah. He'll talk about, like, Mauer winning an MVP, and I'll be like, you also won an MVP. He's
you did that, too.
Shucks. Meanwhile, if I played one game in the majors, I would not. I'm still talking about GCC basketball from 1996. It's incredible. It really is amazing. And Baldelli especially, I've asked him questions about Buxton, when they were trying to get him to jump off 2 feet instead of 1 feet. And I said to Baldelli, like, well, what did you do in center field? And his reaction was almost like, what do you mean? I never played center field. And I'm like, what's even happening here? But I guess to you guys, it's just what you did. It's not that special. Like, in your mind, it's special to everyone else, obviously.
Yeah, no, yeah. I mean, it was just like I've said that a million times. I'm not any different. Like, when I went to work, it was at the Metrodome or Target Field. But, yeah, I mean, that was work. Obviously, there's times that you tell stories and you remember things. And you know, especially when we get together for Hall of Fame stuff or that, you know, those old stories come out, no question. But a lot of it ends up being stuff that didn't happen on the field.
Yeah.
You know, the most memorable things are things that happen away from the field.
Which you guys aren't going to talk about in a room full of media members anyway, if you're smart. So, yeah. The other thing I want to talk about, I remember you saying, like, obviously you came in, I would say, near the end of what became known as, like, the 90s, 2000s style of closer, which was, for the most part, ninth inning only, 1, 2, or 3 run lead. There were a few times you'd throw 1 2/3 or you'd go extras or whatever, but it was pretty rigid. And I remember talking to you like 4 years ago or whatever, and the point you made was not that like closing itself was important, although obviously it's nice to be the closer, but that kind of knowing when you, from a like planning standpoint, knowing that 6th inning, 7th inning, you can still be sort of relaxed. 8th inning, you can start your routine or whatever it is. And I feel like that is one area where they've tried to push the limits of that. I remember talking to Duffy a couple years ago where they put him in the 5th inning on a Wednesday and the 8th inning on a Friday.
Yep.
And I think it was difficult, not because how your pitching is difficult and not because it was like a harder assignment, just because the bullpen phone rings now and you have to be ready at all times.
You have like the mental focus that it takes to do any job on a baseball field is enormous. Like, you have to be very, very mentally strong to do that. It's hard to keep that focus from the 5th inning on. And every time that phone rings, if you think it's you, your heart rate goes up, your adrenaline kicks in. It's not me. All right, I'm gonna chill back out. Then the phone rings up. Here we go again. No, I think that they do a really good job, more or less saying, Duran, these are the 3 guys you're gonna face. Griffin, you're gonna face these 3 guys. Caleb, if this guy comes up with guys on base in the 6th, you got him. Otherwise, you got this section of the lineup.
Saying, like, pregame planning.
They know when they're pitching. You might see.
Well, just getting your blood sugar, your adrenaline, right? Yeah.
You might see Griffin in the 6th one day and in the 8th the next day, and he knew that he was going to throw in the 6th, and if he didn't throw in the 6th, he was going to face those guys in extra innings. So he was able to focus here, shut it down, and then have maybe refocus again later. But all those guys have a really good idea. It may not be in the same inning, but they have a really good idea when they're going to pitch. I do think there's some value to having a consistent presence at the end of the bullpen, because there's a way that a team rallies throughout a game to get the ball to that guy at the. I mean, when I first came up, it was get the ball to Joe at the end of the game.
Right.
Like, get the ball in his hand, and we've got a really good chance to win the game.
I do think, like, I'm obviously a believer that if you have a great reliever, you shouldn't be limiting them to, you know, never pitching an
Facing
extra.
7, 8, 9 in the 9th with a 3-run
Absolutely.
lead.
Well, I was just going to say, I feel like there were times where you were like, I can't believe I came in to face 7, 8, 9, and, you know, so-and-so got to come in and face 4, 5, 6 in the 8th.
Yeah,
that should have been my time.
Selfishly, though, sometimes you look at it and you're like, hey, I mean, if this is what we're going to do, I'll face 7, 8, 9. I'll face a pinch hitter or 2. Like, it's going to make my job easier. Hopefully this guy gets – and you're pulling for whoever it was.
Yeah, you're happy if it works. If it doesn't work, if it gets blown in the 8th with the 4, 5, 6, your point is I should have been the one.
It's hard to, why is it, God dang it, we could have won this game had I been. Now, that being said, a lot of the times my best years were the worst years of Twins baseball, so it was like June 15th and we're eliminated, and so then it was basically like, I might as well try to rack up some saves.
Well, but I mean, that's part of the I don't want to say problem, but if you're on a bad team and you're a guy who only pitches the 9th inning when you have a lead, well, bad teams don't have that many leads.
Right, yeah.
And so I remember this happened a lot with Joe Nathan in certain years, which is he would come in and pitch a 12-3 game, and people are like, what the hell are you using Joe Nathan in a 12-3 game? Well, there hasn't been a save situation.
Yeah, you got to get support.
So I do think this current approach or more recent approach allows you to, like with Duran, they can ensure that he pitches 3 times a week. They can space it out.
In the same way you don't want a guy going back to back to back or throwing 25 pitches and then pitching again the next day. You also don't want a guy sitting around for 5 days.
Right. What robo umps? What are your thoughts on
They should have done it 5 years ago.
Really?
Yeah.
Really?
I think that tide is changing. That was always like a pitchers would love that. Hitters say no chance. I think that's getting more widely accepted. They're doing it in the minor leagues, so it's a matter of time before it comes up to at least with the challenges and those things.
Right.
There's going to be some form of that coming to baseball, and to me, it's like if you were going to invent the game now, you wouldn't put
That's true.
a 50-year-old behind home plate
But
and say,
How would
"Tell
you,
me if this 100-mile-an-hour pitch is a strike." Like
How-
you're going to have the frickin' radar screen.
how
do
would
it.
your stuff have played with a robo up? Because I remember you were somebody who, despite the fact that you were used early in your career a lot versus left-handers, wasn't particularly effective versus left-handers. It was one of the things that drove you crazy. And I think you talked on our Patreon podcast about how part of that was you had trouble throwing the sinker to left-handers because you had
Slider.
trouble visualizing
Yeah.
where that sinker would go to left-handers. How would you have fared with robo-ups, and how would you have had to adjust with robo-ups if it was that strict strike call that you got to drop it into that box?
So that the basically the second half of my career is when umpires started getting graded on like Quest Tech, those things. So they were getting grades.
Okay.
The strike zone became pretty consistent. There's errors that obviously a robot umpire wouldn't do, but the strike zone became pretty true. The first half of my career, like the Metrodome years, when Joe was behind the plate, like batting champion,
Sure.
Gold Glove, Joe Mauer, Mr.
Right.
Congeniality, like the umpires loved him. You would get 3 inches in off the plate because Joe was catching. Like, I love throwing to Mike Redmond, but I wanted to throw to Joe because Joe's going to get like a 6-inch bigger strike zone than Mike Redmond is because the ump doesn't know Mike Redmond. And so that back then, yeah, that would have hurt real bad, especially because I had bad shit as a starter. And I needed like 3 inches
wanted
on
all
each
the
side.
inches
I
you could
needed,
get.
if I could paint the white stripes in a batter's box and get calls,
Right.
that's where I had to live.
But we saw in 2020 when play resumed after the shutdown for COVID, and they had the summer camp here, basically like in June or July, and they couldn't bring umpires in, so they used the robo-ump. And they had, I think Colby
They were doing the
Suggs
scrimmages.
was the one that was
Yeah.
calling out balls and strikes, and there were so many fights going on in these scrimmages that we were allowed to watch because the strike zone was completely different. And I remember I saw an interview, I think that year, with Clayton Kershaw, who said basically, I'm all for robo-umps, like you just said, but if they're going to call the strike zone as they're calling it now, with the robot, like you said, just drop it into that. He said, I'll just throw some big-ass curveball.
Yeah, real high.
It'll hit the plate, basically, but
Yeah.
and he said nobody will be able to hit that.
Yeah.
So do you think it will be harder for hitters to adjust to the quote-unquote rule book strike zone?
I think everything will adjust really quickly because it's consistent from day one. And you give a hitter, 10 straight at-bats against a pitcher, they're
Right.
going to figure them out. Like, give them a week in spring training or 2 weeks in spring training, they're going to know the zone. Like, those guys, it amazes me when you watch guys take pitches, like, on the outside off the plate,
Right.
and they could draw a line on the ground exactly where that ball crossed where home plate is. Like, they know that, like, by heart.
Right.
And I think it's wild because, like, that, like, I hit, like, 7 times. And Jeff Supan looked like he was throwing 110, and it was, like, 85. And so I don't know
I looked
with
up
the
those
stuff
7.
that guys,
I looked up those 7 at bats, by the way.
7 plate appearances because I
7
did
plate
have 3
appearances.
sack bunts.
You're right.
And the only time I swung was a changeup, and I fouled it off.
I was wondering about. So you were 0 for 4 in at bats,
Yep.
all 4 strikeouts.
Why did you look this up?
Jeff Supan struck me out.
But to give you credit, the 3 bunts you laid down were all successful.
Yeah.
You never had a bunt that was unsuccessful.
That's
when you
right.
laid it.
Yeah, buddy.
And Parker says never bunt. Come on.
I'm surprised Gardy didn't bag his second. Move those runners
No,
over.
Jeff Supan struck me out. And then I faced Greg Maddux, and he struck me out.
What's it like facing Greg Maddux as a pitcher?
He threw me the front door two-seam that came back. I thought it was going to hit me in the back, and the umpire rang me up. And I looked at him and I
you
said, where was
backdoored
that?
a lot of people on first pitches on a regular basis. So
I looked at it, I was like,
it's only fair.
I was like this, thinking the ball was going to hit me in the back. And I'm looking right at the up, and I said, where was that? And he goes, right down the middle, son.
You used to You used to love to throw that first pitch slider over the plate to kind of give the slider as a wake me up pitch. Like, here, I can throw a slider for a strike.
Yeah.
And now you got the Maddox does the same thing to you.
He threw me the two-seamer,
right,
and then I struck him out with a changeup, and he like corkscrewed himself, like did a big pirouette after he missed.
But I thought there was like an understanding between pitchers. Like, I'm just gonna throw you fastballs.
So I talked to Maddox. He was my pitching coach in the World Baseball Classic in 2013, and I talked to him and I asked him about that, and I said,
"Really?
You threw me that pitch?" I told him the whole story, and he laughed like, "Yeah, I've done that 3,000 times or whatever it was."
You weren't special.
And then I said, after that I struck you out with a changeup, and he says, "I'm surprised I didn't say something to you yell at you on the field."
Yeah.
I'm a young idiot playing in the American League, like have no idea what I'm doing, but I did strike out Greg Maddox. Then I had to face Adam Wainwright, and so he struck me out twice. He struck me out twice.
Yeah, you had
and he threw me one curveball. He threw me a 2-strike curveball that I thought was going to the backstop. And it like broke down, and that's when he was 09, when he was really, really good.
Right.
But I beat him. I beat Maddox. So, two of my how many? You looked up all these. How many wins did I have in my career? You looked up how many at bats I have, but not how many.
So
this
wins
this is what it's like working
you
with
may have
him.
noticed in the middle of this interview, I started
Always
looking at my
looking
phone.
at
It's because
half
we
empty glass.
often play a game at the end of it, which is sort of Glen Perkins trivia. Which I printed
like how well
out.
do I know my own?
Like, do you remember who your 100th strikeout was against? Do you remember who your 500th strikeout was against? Do you remember?
Yeah, but you didn't look this up, so don't play this
No, I
game.
did. I did do all this. I looked all this stuff up, and I put it on a sheet of paper, and I can't find it in my pocket. Actually, that's it right there. Wow, bring me that.
David Brower
35?
Bring it over here.
So two of them were against Greg Maddox and Adam Wainwright, and Cliff Lee when
How
he
much
won the
is it
Cy Young.
worth to you?
I'll get you another beer.
Telling me I was a shitty starter.
All right.
Well, this. Wait, while you look that up,
You go ahead.
I had one other thing. So, when you were, now you're often teamed up. You guys had done a 3-man booth sometimes, but also you and Morneau, it sounds like, are going to be the primary. Also, I know Smalley's in the mix too. Did you ever, when you were playing, were there guys on these teams where I'm thinking of like Kadire primarily, where you just thought, as soon as this guy retires, he's going to go into broadcasting? I know Chris Archer is one that people mention now. I mean, he was doing stuff with the Twins last year. He would do 3 innings on the broadcast or whatever.
Yep.
I don't know that I would have pegged at the time you and Morneau as the guy from those teams that are going to end up in the booth.
Yeah, definitely not Morney. He's not typically an outspoken kind of guy, like public speaking, but he was a surprise for sure. I feel like, I mean, that's why when Dave asked me, I was like, yeah, I guess that makes sense. I mean, I always did my interviews. I enjoyed talking to the media and teaching them things, learning things from them. So I feel like it was a natural fit for me, and I do get a lot of people that saying like, man, I'm pleasantly surprised, as if like I was like some dipshit when I played.
We were standing over there before we came up here, and I forget, what's this guy right here? And I don't mean to call you out, but it was funny. He came up and he was like, hey man, love you I like you so much better than I thought I'd like you. and he gave it another 10 seconds of compliment, and then Glenn went, go back to what you said. Why did you not expect me to be good?
I was pleasantly surprised you were a much better brewer than I thought you were going to be.
But when you were playing, did you think to yourself, Trevor Plouffe is going to become a media maven?
No.
No.
You know what, though? He's always been really charismatic. Like, he's that Southern California cool guy, and very punchable early on. when we were together in the minor leagues, he was a very punchable guy. Never did. I really like him, and he's always had charisma. So I think it you never know. Like, I met him when I met him, he was 18 years old.
Right.
And then you play with him, and then, I mean, everybody grows up, changes, gets older, gets smarter, wiser, whatever. And he definitely had charisma, though. And, like, I think that he makes some crazy predictions, says some crazy shit, but, like, he always brings energy and entertainment.
The last time we did one of these pre-COVID, he was our guest, and I agree he's really good on the air, but it is really annoying to me how good he is and how good his show is, because I obsessively every week I look at the podcast chart, and almost every week we are like second or third, and every time
He is like first or
talking
second.
baseball with Trevor fucking Plouffe is number one, and I'm like, if we wouldn't have had him on the pod and told him how great
we
he was,
launched him, is what you're saying.
Yeah, I want credit.
Right, exactly right.
You
Yeah.
launched his media career.
we were too. I don't want to say we launched him, but I feel like I was too
I
encouraging.
think that's what you said.
It means good things for your career, though. I mean, we've
Yes.
got a track record, is what I'm saying.
No, don't start a because I can't drop any lower
I don't
than
know. I went
third.
on your podcast and then COVID happened, so I don't know how. You guys might be a curse.
Okay, wait. So you have a
All right,
Glen Perkins.
so here's a Glen Perkins trivia. We love asking players about their own careers to see what they can remember.
because you
what
guys
they can't
never remember anything. It's
All right,
beautiful.
Your first game,
That was at Fenway Park.
Fenway Park in 2006. Do you remember your first strikeout?
Yeah, so this is actually a really cool story. So I get called up. We go to Fenway Park. I go to Fenway Park from Rochester, and a couple days later I pitch and I come out. Guardy gives me the ball and it's Carlos Pena.
Yeah, mop
And-
up, Guerrero.
And I'm like, all Stelly told me, he was the bullpen coach at the time, was throw the ball at the knees in the bullpen because your adrenaline's going to kick in and it's going to be at the, like, you're going to miss everything up.
Okay.
I threw Carlos Pena 3 straight fastballs. I don't think
Yep.
he swung at all 3, but I struck him out swinging.
You struck him out on 3 pitches. You're
Okay,
right.
and so then I was up for, I pitched like 5 games in my first year and then pitched in the playoffs. But then the next year I get called up. I make 1 start in AAA, get called up, and it's against the Tampa Bay Rays, and I'm in the bullpen again.
Yep.
And I don't know anything about any hitters in the big leagues, but one of the first guys I face is Carlos Pena. And I'm like,
yep.
oh, hell yeah, I know how to get this guy out 3 fastballs.
How'd that go for you?
Home run to center
Yep.
field. So first strikeout,
he was your
home
first
run.
strikeout, and then he went only 1 for 7 against you, or 1 for 6 for you.
And by the way,
but included a home run.
Dead center at
Yep.
the
and now
Metrodome.
he's a media member too.
Yeah.
He was at Target Field like 3 or 4 times, I think, with was it Apple TV or one of the national broadcasts.
Okay.
All right. How about your first win? Do you remember who your first win was against?
Texas Rangers.
Correct.
May
2008.
of 2008.
All right, I take it back. He knows
May 20,
everything.
2008. Yep, that's very good. Do you remember anything about the game? You remember how you ended up getting the win?
I don't. I bet you Brendan Harris hit a home run.
Yeah, Gomez started out the game with a triple,
Okay.
and you got 2 runs in the first and like 7 runs in the third. It was
Oh,
absolutely
sweet.
cruised up. And
What
that
did
was
I go,
after
6
your
innings, 3
first 2
runs,
games. Your
quality
first
start?
2 games that year were quality starts, and you lost.
Oh wow.
And that one was
I knew
an
I was.
absolute
I
blowout.
pitched really well. Yeah, I did pitch. I pitched well
You were-
and couldn't because I made my first start like May 10th, and I think was that May 21st,
That was May 20th.
May 20th. So
Well-
I made a couple starts.
Yep. All right. First save.
Milwaukee Brewers.
Correct.
I got Prince Fielder out.
July 3rd, the debut. Yes, you did.
Yeah.
So Matt Capps came in.
Yeah,
Gave
Matt-
up two.
Proven closer, Matt.
Moving closer, Matt Capps came in.
He was on a downhill slide at the
Gave
time.
up a single ground out and single.
Yeah,
And Prince Fielder was coming up to bat, and so they brought in the lefty.
and
Which I know.
did. He got out, and then I struck out Casey McGehee.
That is correct. Who was a pinch hitter?
Yeah.
Because they didn't want him to face the
Best
lefty.
thing that
They
ever
brought in
happened
a
is like,
right-hander
give
to
me a
face
right-hander
you.
off the
They
bench,
brought
and
in
I'll
a
strike him out
much
all the
worse
time.
right-hander. Right.
Yep.
I remember when they had Tyler Clippard like 3 years ago in the Twins bullpen, and every opposing manager would pinch hit a lefty against him because he's a righty.
Yeah.
And I remember
His
asking
changeup.
Yeah, and I remember
Yeah.
asking him about it at the time, and he was like, "It's so great.
Yeah.
that no one looks up
Yeah.
that I'm so much better against lefties."
I absolutely hated facing lefties.
Right.
And then I would get to face a righty off the bench in the 9th inning. Like, it was the best thing ever. They didn't want to be out there.
Right.
They didn't want to hit.
I've got 100th save, 100th strikeout, or 500th strikeout. Do you remember any of them?
I'm trying to think. 100th
100th save.
had to
That's a
be-
big one.
That had to be sometime in 2015.
That's correct.
I'm amazed by this. I don't remember
I have
anything.
no idea. Would have been probably May-ish.
It was May 15th, and it was the Tampa Bay Rays.
Okay.
And to get it, you ended up grounding out Joey Butler on an 0-1
I do
pitch.
not remember Joey Butler. I
I
wouldn't
didn't
remember
either.
that name.
Right. 500 strikeout, I wonder if you remember, because you ended the 2015 season.
With 499?
That is correct.
So I only
You-
got one
you-
strikeout. No, you know what? I hung a
You.
slider to Salvador Perez in Kansas City. Is that it?
So it was you had got to 499, and then you pitched 2 more games,
In
but you didn't get a
2016.
strikeout. Yeah.
didn't?
You didn't get a strikeout in 2015. You had 499 with two, and you pitched 2 more games in 2015. Did not get a strikeout.
So in 2016, Kansas City Royals.
2016
in Kansas City.
You got it. Let's see. Versus the Royals.
Salvador Perez.
Nope.
It was a right hand. It was
Mike Moustakis on a 1-2 pitch. That's how you got your 500th strikeout, and you ended up with 504 in your career. It was shortly thereafter that you ended up.
Just made it.
Yeah, you did. I wondered if at 490, did that annoy you that you went like you were close to 500 at the end of 2015? And you were like,
If you asked me how many strikeouts I had in my career, I would have said.
There wasn't a PR guy saying,
I had
you got
no
this.
idea.
Well, okay, so when you were hurt at that point, the time he's talking about, was it important to you, no matter how effective you were or how long it lasted, to literally
get back.
just get back on a major
That's all I
league
wanted
mound?
to do. Yeah. It became I went through all the MRI stuff, all that, and then when they go into your shoulder and they look, and then it came out and he's like, hey, your rotator cuff is really bad. And we didn't want to fix it because it would have been like 2 years at a minimum. Right. And so, when he told me that, he's like, we fixed up your labrum, but, your rotator cuff is screwed. I kind of knew at that point, all right, I'm just going to try to get back.
That was a technical diagnosis.
Yeah, it was he was like, we should really fix this thing, but you're at, they ask you, how long do you have left in your contract?
Right.
And so he's like, we wanted to make sure you could pitch.
Right.
And so I kind of knew at that point. But yeah, I didn't keep track. The one thing, I made my 5th career appearance, 5th or 6th career appearance in the playoffs, and then never pitched in the playoffs again.
Yeah, that's right. You had 1 appearance in the playoffs.
Yeah,
yep.
And that was 2006. And then I thought, man, this is great.
You relieved
Brad Radke.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, out in Oakland.
Yeah.
But what did I make? 407 appearances or something.
So do you have any idea which hitter you faced the most?
Miguel Cabrera.
Close. Miguel Cabrera was the 3rd most. Paul Konerko was the 2nd most.
So it had to be another White Sox.
Yep. And this White Sox was not
Alexi Ramirez.
That is correct. Yeah, whose career absolutely kind of matched yours in terms of the time that you were together, right? Any idea who you struck out the most?
Adam Dunn.
He is tied with Miguel Cabrera.
Okay.
The 2 guys you struck out the most were Miguel Cabrera
How about
and
that?
Adam Dunn. How about that?
I feel like you almost know too much about your own career now. I've changed now. I started this by saying he's not going to know any.
I'm going to be honest with you. I think it was either last year or the year before we did this on air.
Oh, they did.
Because I was just about to say,
not me.
Some of these I know, the Carlos Pena thing. Everybody remembers who their first at bat was against, who their first hit was against.
Of course.
The first guy. Everybody's gonna remember that stuff.
Do you wake up in a cold sweat and be like, oh, I hung that slider to so and so?
Yeah, to J.R. Murphy, and then we traded for him.
That's why. Is that why he get traded for?
That's why Aaron Hicks is on the Whites or on the Yankees, and J.R. Murphy was a Twin.
All right, here's a weird one. You hit 3 batters twice in your career. Ooh. There are 3 batters that you hit.
Yeah, who did you really hate that you were throwing
twice in your career?
One of them, I'm gonna throw Brandon Inge out there.
That was the one I was going to say for last because of the whole Detroit Tigers thing. But yes, Brandon Inge was absolutely one of them.
Carlos Guillen.
Oh, you're close. Carlos Quentin.
Everybody hit him. He hung over the plate and he had the big arm guard.
Any more? Juan Pierre is the last one.
Why would you hit Juan Pierre?
I don't know. Let him hit a pop out.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
What's he gonna do?
Try to hit it out of the stadium.
Right. I don't know.
Well, I'm shocked by how much you knew, but I guess.
So the Brandon Inge. Did I tell you guys this story about Brandon Inge? All right, so we were at Comerica Park in Detroit, and when you're warming up there, the bullpen is behind left field, and from the mound, there's the top of the padding of the wall is right in line with the mound and home plate. So you have to bend way down to see what's going on the field.
Okay.
And so when you're warming up there, you really have no idea what's going on. You'll know when the inning ends and that. So whatever, I'm warming up, getting ready, and I come into the game, and at the same time I'm running onto the field, they're saying somebody's taken over in right field. Jason Kubel's out of the game. I'm like, God, that's weird. I wonder what happened. So Brandon Inge is the first guy up. And I'm throwing first pitch fastball in, and I yank it, and I hit him in the calf. And everybody starts freaking out. And I'm like standing on the mound like, what is going on? Umpire comes out, that's a warning. I end up getting fined. They hit Kubel
That's what happened.
in the previous inning.
You didn't even know about
And
it.
I came into the game, and nobody said,
Right.
like, hit Brandon Inge. And I just accidentally hit him, and I had to pay like $2,000. I got warnings. Everybody's like, the benches didn't clear, but like everybody came up on the top step, and I'm like looking around like,
I can't even see from out there.
what shitstorm did I step in? I have no idea what's going
Right.
on.
That's funny.
How much, like in general, how much of that is real? Like when they say, oh, watch out, they're going to hit somebody the next. Like how much conversation is there actually in a major league dugout or in the bullpen?
So it would just go. I only got asked to hit a guy once in my whole career in the big leagues, and it goes from the dugout to the catcher, and then the catcher meets you out there to give you the ball and go over your signs and all that stuff, and then they say, hey, we're going to hit this guy. Keep it low, whatever.
Right.
I missed the guy I was supposed to hit like 3 times.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, I forget who it was, but I mean, there's always examples of that where they try to throw behind a guy. The guy either moves or they just let it loose and it doesn't hit him.
Yeah.
And then they try it again, and then I feel like the umpire's like, well, what do you want me to do now? You've thrown 2 behind him.
Yeah, that's what I did.
Right.
I think I might have been 2. He ended up lining out to short, so I got him out. But he was supposed to get hit.
The greatest one of those.
It's so hard, though. It's so hard to hit a guy. Like, it's way easier to hit the glove than, like, when there's a dude
Right.
standing there.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
But the best one of those, I think it was Jose Mijares, hit somebody from the other team.
Oh, yeah. And Delman Young.
And then they hit Delman Young.
Yeah, and then-
Delman Young got mad at Mijares.
Yep.
He went charging
And
the
he
old
charged
dugout.
his own dugout, basically.
Yes.
I've never seen that
he
before
ran.
or since.
He went toward our dugout. This was at Comerica as well.
Right.
And he went toward the dugout and started screaming. And the Tigers came out on the field, and then Gardy was like saying to Jim Leland, like, no, this is on this side. This is
No, he wants to fight his own teammate.
our
Don't worry
frickin-
about it.
Our idiot lefty hit
That's
a
awesome.
guy, and he wasn't supposed
That's
to.
awesome.
That is a dream matchup of guys. Delman Young and Jose Mijares
Oh, I
is
would
a
have
real,
funny to yeah.
just like, yeah.
That's worth the price of a ticket.
Yeah, that is a good. All right. Well,
All right.
to finish up, I'm going to ask you the same thing I asked Reusse. We're going to get you on record with a prediction again,
Oh, man.
so that people can then mock you at the end of the season, or give you credit potentially at the end of the season. But
What's the 2023 season?
assuming there aren't massive moves coming, which I think is probably pretty safe. But A, how do you view this division overall? And then B, give me like a win total or a first place, second place, third place at least for where the Twins are at.
Well, the Detroit and Kansas City, I don't think are a factor. Chicago never seems to be able to get out of their own way, and I know Reusse is not going to be back. I don't know how much of an effect that'll have, but they always manage to screw up on their own. Like, that's gone back all the
Right.
way to, like, the Ozzie Guillen days. Like, they would wet their pants when it mattered the most.
Even in 2021,
Yeah.
the short season,
Yeah.
or 2020, I guess.
And so I don't. And then Cleveland they shouldn't be that good, but that's Tito, man. Like, he's a magician, and so I don't know. I mean, it's gonna hurt them not playing. They're losing 10 games total between
Right.
Kansas City and Detroit, and then Cleveland and Chicago as well, who they did well against Chicago last year. But so losing some of those games, playing other teams, that may or may not. It depends how the teams are in the National League that the Twins are going to play this year. I will say I think adding Lopez to the rotation is going to be a boost, at least for the floor of the rotation and replacements, all those things. They didn't get better. Like, bringing back Carlos Correa doesn't make them a better
Right.
team than they were last year. If they can
Pitching's
stay
better.
healthier than they
Pitching's
stayed
better.
last year,
Pitching's better.
they conceivably should be a better team. Maeda back, that they should be able to pitch better. I think they're going to be able to field better, and the direction that they went with that they're going with the outfield is certainly going to help the fly ball pitchers that we have. I think if they stay healthy, I heard Reusse say 86 wins is going to win the division. I agree with that. It's probably the worst division in baseball. They got to stay healthy, and they have a chance. I think I mean, I think they're like an 80 to 82 win team. And what happens in those other games? We saw with the Vikings this year. They won a whole bunch of games by less than a touchdown. Like, if you do well in one-run games in the big leagues, like, it's all luck, but maybe they go 25-10, and they end up with 90 wins. Like, it's going to be who wins the one-run games.
Well, that was
Yeah, so give us the 1, 2, 3. I'm tired of all the explanations.
That's the thing.
Where are you going? What's
I feel
1,
like
2, 3?
like somebody has to win the division.
Yeah, and who's it
And,
going to
like,
be?
that is true.
Who's it going to be?
By default.
It'd be
Yeah.
a great story if that didn't happen.
I think it's going to end up coming down to the Guardians and the Twins again, and
Okay.
they pulled it off last year. So I don't. This is really freaking hard for me
Yeah,
to do.
I know, yeah.
Yeah,
That's
that's
why
why
I got to go in like 2 months and like
All
say
right.
all
Yeah.
kinds of good
So
things.
you and
We're
your
gonna
you're in your Valley
You know what?
Sports North.
I think that they're gonna their luck will change and they may sneak it out with 85 or 86 wins. But I think that they're like an 80 to 82 win team.
Okay.
But I'll say that the Twins will pull it off by just a little bit over the
How about a
Guardians.
little love? How about a
White
little
Sox
love?
third. It's not going to be pretty. That division's not going to be pretty. It's not.
So
I'd
I
be
think
shocked
what you
if
just said
anybody
was
wins 90
Twins
games.
win the division with 85 wins.
85, 86. Yeah.
All right.
Did you ever think you would appear on a podcast in which you make the identical prediction to Patrick Reusse on their win total? Although he phrased it as a negative.
You know what? When I was going to say like 78 to 80, but I feel like they got to stay a little bit healthier than they did last year.
Yeah, I mean, obviously they're banking on it's a tough sell before the games start to say in the middle of January, you know, we haven't, like you said, Correa's back, but Correa was on the it's a very tough sell to fans to say they're not going to be as injured as last year because nobody wants to hear that shit.
Yeah.
But they're clearly banking
They
on
almost
that.
have to be.
Right.
Like, I don't think it can go as poorly as it went last year.
What do you think so I lied. I have one more question.
Of course.
What do you think about the bullpen in general? Obviously, Duran is amazing, but my feeling has been they're one, I think, righty reliever short, even like a Michael Fulmer type.
I thought Fulmer would be back.
He's unsigned, which is really weird.
I wouldn't be surprised if he ends up signing a deal and maybe with the Twins in the next couple weeks, like right before spring training.
Right.
I think he did everything they want him to do. He throws strikes.
He was
healthy.
really good. He was effective.
I mean, that's if that's your fourth best reliever, it's a pretty good bullpen.
Right.
Fourth best righty. That's a pretty good bullpen.
All right, so
All right.
85 wins,
85 wins.
division title.
Go after Glenn.
Do you want to say anything mean
if
about?
he screws it up?
Do you want to say anything
It's his
mean
fault.
about Joey Gallo or
He's
Miguel
jinxed
Sano
them.
to really match Royce? You're gonna stick to.
I have a more positive outlook. I think the Arise trade was great.
Wait a
I
second.
think-
You have a more positive outlook than Patrick Royce.
Believe it or not, I do.
So
Yeah.
do I, and that's
He'll-
saying something.
He'll say that's the Bally rose-colored glasses.
Yeah. Now that you're a full-fledged
Man,
media
is
member.
he's very cynical.
All right. Everyone, I want to thank, first of all, big hand for Glenn.
Thank you.
Come on. All right. If you want to meet him, he'll be able to stick around, I think, a little bit. So, in about 20 minutes or half an hour, we have got, if you have not put your raffle ticket in there, we've got the 34 set of Hall of Fame bobbleheads that we're going to do. We're also going to do the red-green game. Hang around for that one. We got like 4 different prizes for that. We've got a few other door prizes to give away. Also, open bar, or keep going after the bar, folks. We got time there.
Don't say
Not
open bar.
Open bar, sorry.
Don't say open bar.
Cash bar.
We don't make that much off the Patreon to have an open bar.
Go there and make sure you tip your servers well because they've been treating you guys well. We'll be back in about 20 minutes.
Gleeman